Always play it down. Is playing it down, is that expressing calm? It seems dishonest. It seems
Can
like
you
a
read the
lie.
rest of the quote?
That's how much they put in there.
Oh, you excluded the last part.
We'll play the full thing on 60
Please,
Minutes
please
on
do.
Sunday. Do you deny
Please
that
do
he
explain.
misled the American
Please,
people
of
about
course
the
I
threat of
deny
this
that.
pandemic?
And he makes clear that he doesn't want to see chaos, by the way, is the second part of the quote, which you failed to read.
In public, though, February 28th, he says, one day, it's like a miracle, it will disappear.
Well,
It's one thing to, as a public figure, not to try to incite panic. It's a very different thing, respectfully, to lie and mislead the American people about a crisis that has claimed nearly 200,000 American
No one
lives.
is lying to the American people. One day COVID will go away. I think we can all hope for that day. We will have a vaccine because of this president tearing through bureaucracy to get a safe and effective vaccine. One day it will go away. That is a fact. It is not inciting fear. This president has expressed calmness from this podium, mobilized the greatest mobilization of the private sector since World War II, got more tests than any country in the world on COVID, a vaccine, which, by the way, it'll be a record for a novel pathogen. The timing of this vaccine, should we get it by the end of the year or should we get it even 3 years, which was the timing of Ebola? This president has done an unprecedented job dealing with COVID, one that Dr. Fauci even acknowledged. And like I said, I will get you that clip to your inbox. Yes.
We had an interesting article from Joel Pollak this morning, and I would like to ask you if the president has considered pardoning President Obama for illegally wiretapping on Trump Towers, illegally spying on U.S. citizens, and other potential crimes out there. Has he considered that?
So I have not spoken to the president about that, but who I did speak to about President Obama and unmasking Michael Flynn were the men and women in this room. I haven't spoken to him on that specific point, have spoken to him about the matter generally, and I laid out a series of questions that any good journalist would want to answer about why people were unmasked, and all sorts of questions. And I just wanted to follow up with you guys on that. Did anyone take it upon themselves to pose any questions about Michael Flynn and unmasking the President Obama spokesperson? Oh, not a single journalist has posed that question.
But
Okay.
Michael Flynn's name wasn't
So
masked.
I would like to lay
Kaylee.
out a series of questions, and perhaps if I write them out in a slide format, maybe we're visual learners, and you guys will follow up with journalistic curiosities.
My own. Last July, President Trump declared himself the least racist person there is anywhere in the world. Why does he use racist phrases like the Kung flu?
The president doesn't. What the president does do is point to the fact that the origin of the virus is China. It's a fair thing to point out as China tries to ridiculously rewrite history, ridiculously blame the coronavirus on American soldiers. This is what China's trying to do. And what President Trump is saying, no, China, I will label this virus for its place of origin.
That's what he's saying by using the racist phrase Kung flu.
He is linking it to its place of origin.
What does he have to say to Asian Americans who are deeply offended and worried that his use will lead to further attacks of discrimination?
So the president has said very clearly it's important that we totally protect our Asian community in the U.S. and all around the world. They're amazing people, and the spreading of the virus is not their fault in any way, shape, or form. They're working closely with us to get rid of it. We will prevail together. It's very important. So it's not a discussion about Asian Americans, who the president values and prizes as citizens of this great country. It is an indictment of China for letting this virus get here. And I would also point out that the media blames President Trump for using the terms China virus and Wuhan virus when they themselves have used these very terms. The New York Times called it the Chinese coronavirus, Reuters the Chinese virus, CNN the Chinese coronavirus on January 20th, Washington Post January 21st, Chinese coronavirus, and I have more than a dozen other examples.
Separate category, Kaylee. Kung flu is extremely offensive to many people in the Asian American community. To be clear, are you saying the White House does not believe it is racist?
To be clear, I think the media is trying to play games with the terminology of this virus, where the focus should be on the fact that China let this out of their country. The same phrase that the media roundly now condemns has been used by the media. I can go more examples. Wuhan virus, CNN said on January 22nd, and we can go on and on and on. So while the media wants to focus on nomenclature, the president's going to focus on action.
Here, I heard you mention one thing you said was criminal, and that was what?
The one thing that I've said that was criminal?
Right.
the leaking of his name and the very real questions that have been raised. But if you want to start talking about wrongdoing in the administration, happy to go through Andy McCabe leaking to the Wall Street Journal and then lying about it. Happy to talk about James Clapper lying before Congress, saying the NSA does not monitor phone calls. That was an inaccuracy, to say the least, if not a lie. And John Brennan telling Congress that the bogus Steele dossier played no role in the Russia probe, when in fact we know it did and was the basis of attaining FISA warrants. So there's a lot of mistruths there that were said, many of them under oath. So I would point you to those and the many other real questions that I hope you all will pursue.
So the president's view that those people should be jailed, the people you just mentioned?
I never said that. Those are your words, not mine. But perhaps you should look into it and get me some answers. That is, after all, the job. That is, after all, the job of reporters, to answer the very questions that I've laid out, and I hope you guys will take the time to do it.
Today, the nation's top counterintelligence official said that Russia is one of 3 countries that is actively working to interfere in our election. Did the president bring up election interference on the call with the Russian president yesterday?
Again, I wasn't on the call, but the president. I was not on the call. The president has taken more actions for election security than his predecessor, who gave a stand-down order when he learned about election interference. Susan Rice gave that stand-down order. Obama's intel chief even confirmed that stand-down order was given. By contrast, we've given a ton of funding to election security. We take our elections seriously, and we believe in election integrity.
My question is, did President Trump bring it up on the call?
Justin, I was not on the call, Caitlin. Stop filibustering. Justin, let your colleagues ask questions. Justin, okay, Justin no longer has a question. Anyone else?
The governor does not allow that. Does the White House support churches defying these executive orders?
The president's been very clear. He wants to see churches reopen in accordance with his guidelines.
The answer is yes.
I gave you an answer. The president would like churches to reopen and do it in accordance with the
What specific
guidelines.
provision of federal law allows the president to override a
The
governor's
president will
decision?
strongly encourage every governor to allow their churches to reopen. And boy, it's interesting to be in a room that desperately wants to seem to see these churches and houses of worship stay
The
closed.
president.
Why is the president making these unfounded allegations? I mean, this is pretty nuts, isn't it? The president's accusing somebody of possible murder. The family is pleading with the president to please stop unfounded conspiracy theories. Why is he doing it?
Well, I would note that the president said this morning that this is not an original Trump thought, and it is not. In fact, 2003 on Don Imus's show, it was Don Imus and Joe Scarborough that joked about killing an intern, joked and laughed about it. So that was, I'm sure, pretty hurtful to Lori's family, and Joe Scarborough himself brought this up with Don Imus, and Joe Scarborough himself can answer it.
He's the president of the United States, and he's accusing somebody of possibly murder. I mean, this is different. He's not a private citizen. He's the president.
Yeah, and Joe Scarborough, if we want to start talking about false accusations, we have quite a few we can go through about Mika asserting,
I'm asking about the
Mika
president's, I'm asking
Brzezinski.
about the president's allegation.
And
here.
I'm replying to you and saying this morning, as recently, I believe it was this morning or yesterday, Mika accused the president of being responsible for 100,000 deaths in this country. That's incredibly irresponsible. They've dragged his family through the mud. They've made false accusations that I won't go through, that I would not say from this podium, against the president of the United States, and they should be held to account for their falsehoods. Joe Scarborough should be held to account for saying people will die by taking hydroxychloroquine. Never mind the millions of Americans and people across the world who take it for rheumatoid arthritis and other reasons. There are a litany of false headlines like Mika.
The president spreading a false conspiracy theory that suggests that
point you
he's
back to-
responsible for murder?
I would point you back to Joe Scarborough, who laughed and joked about this item on Don Imus's show. It's Joe Scarborough that has to answer these
I'm
questions.
asking you a basic
The president-
yes or no
the
question.
president
Do
does
you
not-
believe it is illegal
the
to
president-
vote twice
the president-
in this country?
The president does not condone unlawful voting. The president's been very clear about this. I'm once again not surprised the media is taking the president out of context. Do you recall what the president said on this matter specifically?
I have it right here. Sure.
Okay, maybe you should read it out for me then.
Okay, so the president said that you should go to your poll, you should vote early, by mail, and then you should go either early voting or day of and try to vote again. So he is asking people to vote by mail and then to go down to the polling place on election day and to vote again if their vote has, if they can't confirm their vote has been counted.
You are missing a very crucial line from the president's remarks. If it is not tabulated, meaning your mail-in vote, then you will be able to vote in person. If it is not tabulated. This is
There are
why,
at least 5 states in this country that do not count any mail-in votes until election day. So those votes won't be counted until afterwards. So there's no way to know whether or not their vote is.
There's a very simple answer, and this is how it works. First, a lot of states have what are called electronic poll books. And what this means is that in real time, this is updated. So if your vote is counted, they check the electronic poll book, and you will not be able to vote in person because your vote has been counted. There's a secondary situation. So those who do not have electronic poll books, every single state in the country, you can cast a provisional ballot. And that is a ballot that is there, and if your vote that you have not mailed in is not counted, they will then count the provisional ballot. And that is exactly what the president's referring to. But what